Welcome to episode 156 of the Campus Comics Cast. In this episode, I attempt to take off Mike and Shaad so much that it becomes Campus Comics Cast, a podcast of one. Not really. So for now, I'm joined on this episode by
Mike Atchison
and Shaad Schubert.
And we are the official podcast for Muddy Monster Comics, located at 1422 Walnut Street in Murfreesboro, Illinois. And on this episode, we are going to be reviewing Justice League, A League of One, and the first volume of Accelerators, and then wrap up the episode with a CLZ shake. So I believe we're starting with, I already forgot what we're starting.
A League of One.
A League of One. All right. So let's see. Anybody wants to add anything? Mike, why don't you just take us on A League of One?
Sure. I haven't thought about this book in quite some time. I read it when it came out in 2000. And the JLA was at its height of popularity in the late 1990s and early 2000s with the Grant Morrison run, and largely penciled by Howard Porter. But I bet there were 50 or 75 JLA one-shots that came out over that course of 5 or 6 years, and not all of them were great. A lot of them were pretty good, but this one stood out to me. It was one of the first. I mean, it was one of a very short list of fully painted Justice League stories that I could think of, and the writer and artist is Christopher Moeller, and like I said, it came out in 2000, January 1st. 112 pages. I've got the I've got the hardcover, I should say. And it's really a Wonder Woman centric story, which doesn't happen often enough. Wonder Woman's one of the, she's one of the Trinity, one of the big three. She's one of the most recognized characters in comics, of both companies, but yet she doesn't have a whole lot of what you would call evergreen stories, or stories that you can just immediately recommend people to read. This comes very close to that, if not completely. And I thought it would be a good one to talk about. There were a couple other stories that Christopher Moeller did for DC. What was it? Justice League Cold Steel a couple of years later. Is that right, Shaad?
Yep. Well, it's in this volume, at least the volume that I read.
Yeah, my hardcover doesn't. It's the standalone. Because those stories I think came out in 05 or 06.
This says 2005.
Yeah. So, yeah, Christopher Moeller's from Pennsylvania. He did some work for Dark Horse. He did a story called, I guess he did the writing and painting of a series called Iron Empires. Graphic novels, and he did some other stuff. So I haven't read anything but this, but I was really impressed with this story. Not to spoil my comments for later. Any initial thoughts from you guys? Had you heard of it before?
I had definitely not heard of it before. I do enjoy the painted artwork, though somewhat inconsistent at times. Not in a way that took me out of anything, but was just like, oh, this isn't the artwork quality that you kind of expect from a big two, but it had a little bit of an independent vibe to it, I guess, a little bit, and I liked that, being more of an indie guy.
I would say that I have enjoyed it. I've not read it before. I also, after having read it though, I said, well, this guy is like one of these fantasy artist guys that decided they decided to turn loose and write a story. But looking over his history, he doesn't have any major fantasy credits or anything like that. So it kind of actually surprised me that I'm trying to figure out what motivated DC to let him take over this book, to do this book like this. And it's so I was kind of surprised, going back over his history and seeing that there's not a whole lot there, and not much more of a comics bibliography either. So,
well, two things. I think because the Justice League was at its apex of popularity, probably anybody that had a little bit of talent, had a pretty good pitch, could get published with a story about the Justice League. But I think he did. I think what he maybe sold them on probably was even more convincing than what it would have normally taken. So I've got a synopsis if you guys would like me to read it.
You go right ahead.
If I have to stop because I'm battling a little bit of a cold, I'm sure I'll wave my hands and Scott will edit out any crazy pauses.
or not.
Or not. You get what you pay for, folks. Okay, so I got to give credits to most of the credit goes to DC Fandom, where I got this synopsis, but it was so lengthy I just had to pare it down to make it not as long as the story itself. So in 1348, the evil dragon Dracul Carfang is defeated by a band of crusaders driving her under a mountain. The only way to kill her is to get her heart and destroy it. Unable to find the heart, they blow the door in, sealing the area. In the present day, the Martian Manhunter guides Wonder Woman through the calming of the Krakatoa volcano. And the job well done. The Wonder Woman teleports back to the Watchtower, and this is back when the Justice League headquarters was on the moon. And she admires a recently received statue that had been given to the Justice League for stopping the eruption. Now, there was no indication of time lapse there, so it was like, how did they get a statue thanking them for stopping the eruption immediately after that scene? But I probably shouldn't comment during the synopsis. Let me continue. She then heads back to Themyscira to relax. In an alpine town, two goblins, Emmerich and Elman, speak of a time when the dragons were feared. Back in the goblin haunt, they notice that the other goblins are gathering near a large door. The door is opened and a sleeping Carfang lies in view, alive. Meanwhile, Wonder Woman puts her magic lasso around herself to speak honestly to the gods about whether she's been true and good, which the lasso reveals that she has. Her heart lightens, she leaps from the cliff and swims with Zoe, a young mermaid who playfully makes Diana also a mermaid with magic, but only temporarily. Athea, a wood nymph, also arrives, and Diana learns from then of the Oracle's prediction of Wonder Woman's impending death. Wonder Woman confirms this with the Oracle, who tells her that the Justice League will destroy Carfang, but at the cost of their own lives. Later at the Watchtower, the Martian Manhunter describes several problems the League needs to address, and they split up to handle these crises. In the Dragon's Lair, the Goblin leader awakens the dragon by pounding pots and pans from all sides. The dragon rises, and the leader offers the gold they've collected as well as their service. Dracul blasts the goblins with fire and turns them into Dracugnomes, little servants of the dragon, so to speak. While Batman investigates his suspicions about Wonder Woman, she systematically begins defeating each Leaguer while they are separated from one another. Meanwhile, Dracul Carfang lies waste to the town of Aldorf, knocking over cars and killing people, and she imbues the people with her essence, causing them to start acting evil, such as kicking an old woman to death and caring for only themselves. Batman figures out what's going on with Carfang and what Wonder Woman is doing to protect the League, so he tries to talk her out of her plans, but she won't have it and she subdues him. Wonder Woman unsuccessfully battles with Superman, and she reveals to him her intentions to prevent the League from fighting the dragon so she can save them from the prediction of the Oracle. She told them she had placed the Leaguers into capsules with a limited amount of oxygen and sent them to the asteroid belt, so the weakened Superman would have to take more time than usual to save his teammates out in space, and it would give Wonder Woman time to fight Carfang. Wonder Woman then confronts the dragon, who does not fear for her life because she thinks that since Wonder Woman is a lone warrior and the prophecy is plural, she is no threat. Wonder Woman flies after her and they fight, but the battle is short. She intimates that she knows where Carfang's heart is and that she's going to destroy it. Carfang, panicking, goes to where the heart is, which is at her home. Elman, one of the gnomes, is there when Wonder Woman arrives before the dragon, and he brings her to speed on the situation. And even though he originally was impressed with the dragon, he's now disgusted by the evil that it brings forth. So the dragon blasts Wonder Woman with flame, which is supposed to kill anyone who is not pure. But of course, Wonder Woman is almost killed, but her inner purity saves her. Carfang, seemingly humbled, offers her her heart so that Wonder Woman can destroy it if she doesn't behave in the future. Wonder Woman goes to retrieve it, but it's a trick, and Carfang knocks her away. Wonder Woman lassos Carfang as she blasts her with poison. And again, the purity of the lasso of truth burns Carfang, and even as Wonder Woman is dying of the poison, she flies through and destroys Carfang's heart, killing her. Wonder Woman falls into the ocean and sinks to the bottom, seemingly dead. But fortunately, Superman arrives, having returned from space where he saved the teammates, drags Wonder Woman to shore, and performs CPR. She revives, basically having died and come back to life. And then much later, the League sort of chastises Wonder Woman for her previous actions, but then congratulate her after she convinces Superman that he would have done the same in that situation. So that was the abbreviated version of the of the plot.
Mhm.
So you can imagine how much was in there.
So it's like a 96-page story, right? So it's a
112, yeah.
112. Okay, yeah. So it's up there in length. So it's longer than a regular comic book. So
Right.
it's a little bit
Right.
more to it.
Yeah. So digging in deeper on comments, guys. You got anything?
There's just a couple of things that I really liked specifically about this story. There were a couple of specific instances where you just got to see. I haven't read a lot of Justice League stories, so this may be common practice.
Yeah.
Is like when they are at headquarters and they're just discussing all the problems and that they have to divvy up and okay, you take these problems, you take these problems, and that kind of, I don't know, administration-y kind of like, here's how we divvy up the problems and what team has taken what, was kind of a thing I hadn't really seen a lot, and it was like, oh yeah, that needs to happen, and every once in a while you gotta, as a geeky office nerd, and sometimes like, oh look, they're divvying
organized.
up the work too. They're organized.
Yeah, they're kind of known for that, to be honest. I mean, going back to the Gardner Fox writing days, that was just the trope. You had so many characters that you usually split them up in twos or threes to go battle different aspects of the threat. But in this case, I think the Justice League differs from its Marvel counterpart, the Avengers, in such a way that I think it's more of a organization that has a charter. They usually have a rotating chairperson. They have their little bang the gavel meetings and stuff like that. It's more organized in that fashion. I can't speak too much to Avengers stories because I haven't read a ton of them, but I believe it. Scott, is that fairly accurate?
I mean, the Avengers have a chairperson as well, but you're right. Their membership is generally not as large as the Justice League, and but I think, and they may have a charter, they have a base of operations, but it's just not quite to the scale. At least it wasn't as the Justice League.
Yeah.
And I liked I also was into the fact that Wonder Woman had kind of the same plan of attack to keep all of the League members in check, similar to like we've seen with Batman on multiple storylines. Was like, oh, okay, I guess maybe everyone has their like, this is how I'm going to take down these people if I need them out of my way. And so it was cool to see Wonder Woman have that same kind of tactic when she needs to get her way and get the League out of her way to make a plan happen.
Yeah, that was one of my comments, was that this really is kind of a Wonder Woman Tower of Babel story versus a Batman Tower of Babel story. Yeah. So, and I actually had to go online and like verify that Tower of Babel was actually before this. So, because Tower of Babel's 2000, this being 2001, so it's not a lot before this. So who knows how long this story was going in this guy's mind, if he was looking for a thread to tie it together and decided that was going to be it. But
what they did was very similar, but what Batman did and what Wonder Woman did, but it was different motivations for sure.
Yeah.
the whole thing about in this particular story too about them being sent out on separate missions, that was actually a bit of a plot device to get the Justice League separated initially, so that Wonder Woman could then work with them individually or in pairs, as opposed to having to take on the entire rest of the team all at once.
Yeah.
So she kind of was able to, take them out as they came back. So.
Yeah, I think if there's going to be a protagonist of any of the Justice League members, I mean, it could have been any of them with this plot, but it fits Wonder Woman better because it's got all these fantasy aspects. You got the dragon, you got the gnomes, you got all of the Oracle. I mean, Oracle plays a big part in Wonder Woman mythos. And besides, Wonder Woman really doesn't have that many. She doesn't have much of a rogues gallery beyond Cheetah, maybe Dr. Psycho.
Maybe Ares.
Yeah, Ares. Yeah, this seems to be. It would have been the right type of story for her to be the headliner. I found it to be a quick read too. It was easy to read and still had somewhat of a plot.
Oh yeah. No, this is. I am sitting here thinking about it, and I cannot come up with another Wonder Woman story that I like as well as this one. Now I have not read a ton of Wonder Woman, but what I've read, there's not a better Wonder Woman story that I can think about. We did the episode where for her 75th anniversary where we talked about some Wonder Woman stories, and it was a struggle for me to find something that I had read that I remembered really enjoying. And in fact, I think on that episode I ended up just picking something and reading it because there wasn't anything that stood out in my mind. If I had read this prior to that, I think I would have chose this story. So.
Yeah, I mean, I'm surprised I didn't think of that. I don't know what I picked for that.
Well, you went all Golden Age, I think, if I remember correctly.
I think I did, yeah. That whole Christmas tree thing, which
yes.
Yeah, so her, the eras of Wonder Woman went from, the William Moulton Marston, bondage and femininity yet power and powerful women's archetypes to after he died, it was Robert Kanigher took over writing chores and then became very tropey with it was basically it was like Lois Lane, Wonder Woman was always fawning over Steve Trevor and it just took another turn. And then in the 70s she had the Bronze Age stories some were kind of fun, but I think we mentioned recently, I don't know if it was on air or on a recording or not, but we talked about if you were to think of one of the most intriguing or interesting turns in her history was the Denny O'Neil when she went to the white jumpsuit and abdicated her powers or gave them up for a while. So yeah, you're right. There's not much now. This recent shoot who not Philip Kennedy Johnson, is that his name? Or is that
Daniel Warren
Johnson? Yes.
Yeah.
He
did Dead Earth.
Yeah, Wonder Woman Dead Earth. I read the first issue of it and I never did finish it. So I heard it was good, but it's something it might compare to this in quality.
I haven't read that either.
Oh, really?
Yeah. No.
There was an aspect of this I thought was something I'd never seen anywhere before or since, and that was when she took her own lasso, wrapped it around herself to see if she was being basically true-hearted, being honest, and that's I mean, that's something you just. I mean, I don't know if anybody would ever even want to know.
Right. Really keeping herself in check. Yeah.
Yes. So that was a nice, interesting way to see how different she is from the other superheroes in the Justice League. She is really a lot different. So, and I don't want to keep talking because I could just on the art itself. But I'll let you guys talk a little bit about the art.
Well, the only major comment I have on the art is Batman just looks wrong because he doesn't have any eyes. He's just always drawn, with just a solid down to his nose, right? There's not no eye sockets, nothing, it's just, which it took me a little while to get used to. Kind of when you see him, it's like he doesn't look right. It's like, why doesn't he look right? Oh, because he doesn't have any eyes.
There's even spots where he does have eyes, like it sinks in where there would be eyeballs, but there's
yeah.
never an opening. There's not an eye hole.
I never noticed that before, but it's like, there's not any. Yeah.
Yeah, not a single time that you see him does he. Yeah.
I mean, I guess that's a take on the costume. You totally could have like a mesh over the eyes that you could see through, but nobody could see your eyes.
And the faces are, they're about the faces are the only complaint I might have, is that he's not real consistent in the way he drew the faces of each character from one scene to the other.
Right. He draws the heck out of that dragon, though.
Oh yeah. That's why I was convinced he was some fantasy artist who had done like a
that makes sense.
Frazetta or even like a Dave Dorman type that had done a lot of fantasy work and then wanted to tell a comic book story. So that's why I was shocked whenever I went and didn't see that he'd worked for like Dragon magazine for 25 years or something like that, because
the scenery is beautiful. The dragon is killer, and I mean his they're like this Wonder Woman kind of the full page spread that they've got towards the end, and like there's a couple like really nice pieces throughout it.
Yeah. The pages where there are fewer panels are generally better than the pages that have a lot of panels crammed into them, and I don't know if that's I don't know what page size he would have worked on initially. So like, is it because he worked from a smaller size, or is it because they took a giant size and shrunk it down? We just don't know. But
the realism of the painting is, I mean, that's the kind of art I really like. But if he'd have just stayed, I liked the depiction of Wonder Woman in most of the panels, but there were some where she just looked distinctly different from others. And if there was anything that could have been improved on, it would have been that. But still, I think the art was, I mean, just wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
And I just want to clarify, it's way better than I could have done.
Yes. and I definitely, having read Cold Steel after, because it was in there, I feel like there's a significant difference in quality of the artwork, even from that to that. Like, and I don't know if that's a rush job or what the real difference is between the two, but he's definitely working on a different level with the League of One story than on the Cold Steel story.
Yeah.
You're saying which one you think is better?
The League of One story.
Okay.
I also wasn't big on the Transformer Justice League either.
I didn't care much for that either.
I think I just kind of recognized what I liked about the way Wonder Woman's face was portrayed by him was she looks authentically Greek. She has that, she's got that, well, they call it a Roman nose sometimes, but also that sort of elongated, little bit long and narrow nose, and just more physically, she looks like she's from that region, so I kind of like that authenticity.
I would say, to be truly authentic, her skin color would need to be a little bit more olive, but
true.
Yeah,
that's true. And any story, I mean, there's a lot of Wonder Woman stories that focus on truth and honesty, but that goes back to the original stories where Marston, her creator, was he invented the blood pressure part of the polygraph test.
Mm-hmm.
So that's there's a lot of that in her history.
I don't think, I'm flipping through, and I don't think I really have any additional comments about this.
I don't either.
Lately I've been putting my the books that I consider top shelf literally now on my top shelf of my bookcase, and I'm thinking now this is going to have just it might not be the best superhero story, or maybe not even the top 100, but as far as a Wonder Woman centric story, I think it deserves for that alone.
Consideration.
So
mm-hmm.
Yeah. So how about you guys?
To put things, I can't put them on my top shelf. I have to alphabetize things. It has to be. They're a monster.
You could go reverse alphabet and start at Z and work your way down. You probably don't have a lot of Z, Y's, or X's.
That's true. You're right.
So then W would be up there on their top shelf.
Yeah.
Do you guys have a grades?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Shaad, because I'm actually I'm just struggling on the grade right now. I gotta make a decision. So
I went. It's weird. This book I went up on a second read, and the next book we're gonna do I went down on the second read. I kind of shifted around a little bit on here, but I gave it a 7.5, very fine minus. I didn't. I don't know if I just wasn't vibing with the story super well the first time, but I do find that if I don't know if this is cheating. It's probably cheating a little bit. I read something, I'll read the synopsis online, and then I'll read it again. I'm like, oh yeah, that makes sense. I'm on it now. I kind of work out all the kinks of the plot that I wasn't quite
You
grasping.
Yeah, I mean I think that's a fair thing to do.
Yeah.
I do the same thing.
But yeah, it definitely I enjoyed it a lot more the second time around, and liked the angle of something that wasn't quite modern, but set in, you've got dragons and goblins and stuff that just didn't quite, you don't see that normally set in current time, and bringing that together I thought was neat.
Well, Shaad, I am at exactly the same grade as you are. Very fine,
All right.
minus 7.5, and I'm landing here because, like I said, I think it's probably the best Wonder Woman story I've ever read. But it's not like I'm deciding if I go 8, and I'm saying I need to go buy this and own a copy of it, and I can't decide if it's almost there for sure. It's borderline, right there on the edge. Absolutely, if somebody's a Wonder Woman fan, they need to read this story, and I would recommend it without hesitation. But I don't know if it's just that top shelf story for me, Mike. So I'm gonna agree with you at that 7.5, very fine minus.
Right.
Well, if your own commitment to your pledge to possess something higher grade than of a certain grade, we can, I'm sure somebody can pitch in and get you a copy of this.
But see, I may not necessarily keep it. It has
That's
to
true.
be at 8.0.
Oh yeah. Well, we
Otherwise,
can't be doing that yet.
Space. I don't want to sacrifice.
Very good.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you don't want to get it for me in case I might just put it in a box for $3. So.
Good call. Good call. I'm glad you said that. I'm going to go a little bit higher. If I were to be grading this back when I first read it, I was so enamored with it back then. I would have given it probably a 9 or a 9.2. But I think it's a little bit dated. The whole pantheon of Justice Leaguers is it's 20 years past, 20 plus years. So I think I'm okay. I'm pretty confident in an 8.5, very fine plus. I think it's right at the cusp of being, nudging up against a near mint, and it's very rereadable. So I think it deserves that. But yeah, I'm a full grade and a half or point and a half above you guys on that. So I'm gonna say 8.5.
Right.
Like I said, it was tough. I had Shaad go first just because I was teetering between the 7.58, 7.58. I couldn't decide. I knew it was right there. It's just which way I wanted to go, because 8.0, that's a commitment on my part.
That's right. You got to put your money where your mouth is.
I got to put my money where my mouth is, and yeah. So.
But now I'm wanting to go out and see if I can find another Wonder Woman story that even would come close to this. I definitely need to finish The Dead Earth.
Yeah.
Well, that would be one. I was like, what I read was that John Byrne Dark Side one, like Wonder Woman, like 201, 202, 203, I think, whatever we did that Wonder Woman story.
Yeah.
And, I mean, it's fine, but it wasn't. I'd great.
Say in the main series, in Volume 2, I enjoyed Greg Rucka's first run on the Wonder Woman, where she had an artist named Drew Johnson, and at the time she was actually an ambassador to the United States from Themyscira, and he, of course, Rucka writing, it makes it above average anyway. So that's something else I have pulled out. There's a 6 or 8 issue arc that he wrote. That's I can't remember the name of it, but it sticks out in my mind as being. We'll have to talk about it some other time.
Yeah. Well, I also remember, and with New 52, the Brian Azzarello run on Wonder Woman initially seemed like it was decent. It had a little bit more of a horror tinge to it. And I seem to remember liking that okay, but this is definitely, I think, better than that. So
Yeah. He did a few things to her origin that some people didn't like.
yeah.
But it
Well,
was
and New
it was
52
it
was
was sure.
all messing with people's origins. So
Yeah. Overall, I really liked that run. I didn't keep it, but I liked it.
I do still have the first issue of that, but I have all of the New 52 first issues, and
Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
the majority of them are crap.
I did keep the very first one because I got Azrael to sign it a few years ago. Cliff Chang art didn't hurt either.
All right,
All
are we
right.
ready to move on to Accelerators?
Accelerators. All right.
Okay.
So we're doing the Accelerators Volume 1 called Time Games. This is written by RFI Porto and illustrated by Gavin Smith. Lettered by a guy named Crank with an exclamation point behind it, and colored by Tim Yates. I only said that so I could say Crank.
Like
this
Elliot
is-
S. Magan.
That's right. This series, as it is 20 issues long. We're only covering the first 6. And issue 20 came out in 2021, though they do call this a current active series still, so it's not technically dead. They just take time between stories, it seems like. I'm gonna go ahead and just read the whole synopsis for this, though it may be a little long. But that way we don't need to stop necessarily probably between issues here. We open at an arena with all of the spectators yelling, "Games, games, games." In the middle are people dressed like they are from different eras of time and fighting and killing one another. Then we get a meanwhile 76 years earlier, where we see a woman with red hair and a lab coat appear in a parking lot holding a blue donut-shaped thing. We will come to know that her name is Alexa or Lex. Then a man in a military officer's uniform and holding a gun and another blue donut-shaped thing also appears. We learn his name is Bertram. After a couple of time jumps of Bert chasing after Lex, she almost gets hit by a truck and is attempted to be saved by a character named Spats, who's a very Bill and Ted-esque 90s kid, I would say.
For sure.
He makes contact with the donut and is transported with Lex. Lex and Spats land in a mall fountain. We get a cameo from the Comic Book Men. I don't know if you guys paid attention to that in the background. Followed quickly by Bert. But when Bert begins to wave his gun around them, he is taken into custody by the mall cops. Bert escapes and catches up with Lex and Spats. He shoots Lex's blue donut as she is going towards it, causing an explosion and Lex to disappear. Spats, holding the other blue donut, ends up causing Bert and himself to time jump again. This time they are tased and taken by some dystopian-looking people who also have blue donuts on them. We open the next issue, seeing Bert and Spats in the middle of the area we see at the beginning of issue 1, the kind of arena. Then we flash back just a little to people who are to the people who tased. Good gosh, Bert and Spats getting paid for giving them fighters who they named Generation X, who is Spats, and the Major. They put them in a jail cell where they are with many others who seem to be from across all of time. We also find out that they have implanted a spinal node in both of them to maintain control over every move they make. Bert and Spats are moved into the arena and along with the other fighters, and they are all to fight to the death. Spats hides the whole time while Bert does a lot of killing until it is just the two of them. The two of them have no intention of killing one another, but since they are controlled by the spinal node, we see that Bert has his gun aimed right at Spats. And then in the next issue, have Spats just disappears right before the bullet hits him from Bert's gun, leaving the Major declared the winner of the event. Spats appears in a different area of the arena through a portal manned by these two men who look kind of identical, and are brought to an office of a woman named Bob, who runs the arena. She explains to him that the dawn of time travel for the world happened when the police discovered a burnt blue donut that Bert shot on the roof the night that Lex disappeared, and they jumped forward into time. They figured out how to make them, and then everyone has one. She explains that they are called accelerators, where the name of the book comes from. They only allow you to travel forward in time, though. Bob has only met one actual time traveler because everybody else is just accelerating through time and not actually doing what they would call time traveling. She only met one time traveler in her lifetime. Meanwhile, down in the dungeon, Bert befriends Spartacus, the actual Spartacus, and Bert is told that he will be taken for improvements before his next match. Bob tells Spats that she can't free Bert just yet because he's grown. He's too much of a crowd pleaser. Bert enters the arena to face off with a giant robot samurai as Bob tells Spats that he is the person she has met that can time travel. Moving on to issue 4. For the first part of this issue, we have split pages with the top being Bert fighting the samurai, who is revealed to be a suffering old man inside controlling the giant samurai. The old man eventually begs to be killed, and Bert does it, winning the match. On the bottom half of the story, we see Bert and Lex and how they got involved in the Accelerators to begin with. Lex was a scientist, part of a team approached by a wealthy old man who was a civilian. The old man employed the team of scientists to research the accelerators and find out how they work. Bertram was part of the military security assigned to the lab. Meanwhile, with Bob and Spats in the current time, which is the future time, she shows him their fishing machines, which is how they find fighters throughout time. They essentially pluck them out of time, and she wants him to run the fishing operation. After Bob leaves Spats with one of the employees, the first thing he does, now understanding the rules of accelerators and the fishing machines as well, fishes Lex out of the time right before she died when the accelerator exploded on the roof. So now we have Lex back. In issue 5, we begin this issue celebrating the new year with at the lab with Lex and Bert back in the day. Bert goes to get some air and is approached by the old man funding the operation, who lets him in on the truth about the ruin of the accelerators that will happen to the world. The accelerators will ruin the world. Back in the future, Bert has received a robotic leg, and Spats catches Lex up on what she has missed. In the past, we see that Bert has warned Lex about what he has learned from the old man, but she doesn't believe him. Later that day, the old man catches up with Lex and tells her he's afraid that Bert is going to do something rash and wants her to get the donuts out of the lab before Bert can destroy them. In the future, Bob is getting ready for the end of the season show. They need to shut down the arena for repairs, and so they are going to have a big game to clean out the cages. All the fighters are going to be facing off against a Tyrannosaurus Rex. In the past, we see Bert going to the lab where he tries to warn everyone, but tensions get high, and one of the officers is shot by accident, causing a bloodbath, and only Bert to survive. Lex tries to sneak past in the lab to grab the blue donuts, the accelerators, but drops one as she is escaping. Bert picks it up, and that's where we kind of see them at the beginning of issue 1 as he chasing after her. In our last issue, at the arena battle between the T-Rex and the fighters, as it goes on, Lex asks the worker if he can fish Bert from the arena, which, after a little trial and error because they are moving, successfully does so along with Spartacus. Meanwhile, Spats has stolen the accelerator that he and Bert showed up with and is making a run for it. He comes face to face with the T-Rex, but Lex is able to fish the T-Rex head, so the T-Rex falls to his death without a head on him, and it lands on the control hub, deactivating everyone's spinal nodes, controlling their movement as well. After Lex and Bert are reunited and embrace one another, they are cornered by Bob and her soldiers, but Spartacus uses his enhanced laser eye to kill everyone except Bob, who dodges the blast. The giant accelerator that controls the fishing machine becomes overloaded. The face of a man comes on the screen who essentially tells Bob that she has lost, and then transports them to the roof nearby where they're able to see the arena explode. Spats asks the man if he is him, and though the man doesn't answer him, it is clear that he is. He tells Spats that Spats will take everyone into the future, further into the future, and then he disappears. Then Spats, Bert, Lex, Spartacus, Bob, and the employee that has been helping them accelerate into the future. The end.
The end.
Or is it?
I don't think it was.
No, there's 3 more volumes. So
yeah. What'd you like about it, Chad?
What did I let's see. I like a time travel story. Is simple. The reason why I was involved in this story to begin with is that these, at least Ronnie Porto, RFI Porto, who wrote it, along with the some of the other people behind the scenes, editor and whatnot, were part of the Comic Book Men like TV show crew at the when it was on. And so if you were following that show behind the scenes a little bit more, you kind of got to know those people and knew that they were Blue Juice Films was their little side film company, and they decided to start producing comics. And so this was their first story out of that new publishing imprint. And so that is kind of how I had heard about this, was through being a fan of that show. And so part of it is just going like, oh, I remember all of this, like when it came out, first issues, and I think there's some Walt Flanagan variants and things of that sort kind of tied to the book. But I will admit though that when rereading this, it was like, oh, it's a little bit more basic even than what kind of story I like with it. But I think there's still some cool to it. I'm curious because I actually didn't read. I own all of the books, but I didn't read like the last 2 volumes. I read the first 2, I guess halfway through the series, and I'm curious to see what all happens because the other part is the old man who employed them to figure out the donuts is also Spats. So he's all throughout time kind of orchestrating this. And so Scott, you're on mute.
Spoilers.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, I was like, that has to be right. I mean, it's drawn that way, of course.
Yeah, it was pretty easy to figure out.
Right. Yeah. That's why I was like, it's a little basic. But yeah. So there were definitely parts of it that I like. I think the arena battle, the T-Rex kind of stuff is probably the more hokey part of it. Yes, definitely not even a maybe.
No, not even close. Yeah.
But the actual plot that's happening is, I think, what I find interesting and is good within that is like, okay, why does he care about finding out what the accelerators do? Because clearly he instigated it, as it all kind of circles back around. So there's definitely a mystery to this that is could be cool, depending on how they stick the landing 20 issues later.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely a story where they need a do-over. They need to like take the premise, go back to the beginning, start from scratch, get rid of the whole gladiator arena thing, dinosaurs, that kind of nonsense. Because they're plucking things from the past, which kind of is contrary to the whole accelerator things, or things get accelerated into the past or into the future, right?
Yeah.
So there's a little bit of inconsistency, I think, in that storytelling. And they kind of talk about this, that the best thing they have to do in the future is giant gladiator fights.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, they say, well, that's just where the people stop before they go to the next time where everything's better, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So it's like, well, why did they bother stopping here?
Right.
Why not just keep going, right? So
yeah, because there's not like there's no rule that seems like your accelerator needs to be repowered or something. Like you're here to kill time until your vehicle charges up again or whatever.
Yeah, because they were using it repeatedly as they were moving through. So there were some inconsistencies there in the storytelling, which I think it could benefit from some editing and some. And like I said, a do-over.
Right.
Well, I thought, when I read the preface, I believe there was a preface to this. They talked about, I think it was a couple of the comic book men.
Mike Zapcic and Ming Chen.
Yeah, so they were kind of hyping on this was really unique for a time travel story because you could only move forward in time. You couldn't go backwards. But I mean, the main character was the one. I mean, if we're right in our assumption that Spats turns out to be the old man that can go back and forth, they kind of defeated the purpose of that by allowing him to do it. So I think they're playing a little bit fast and loose with those rules.
Right.
It wasn't a bad story. I don't think it was constructed badly. I kind of enjoyed it, but just like you, Scott, and Shaad, you too, I think the whole the death match stuff was like, oh, okay, we're gonna do that, and then the dinosaur, even though the dinosaur looked pretty cool, it was sort of jumping the shark there too. There was some bits of the writing that I thought was interesting. I'd never heard of a Fibonacci sequence. The 1 plus
Oh yeah.
2
Oh.
equals
You don't know
3, 2 plus
Fibonacci?
never. I don't remember that.
Just look at a seashell. It's a Fibonacci sequence.
Yeah. Okay, so I thought that was interesting. There were other parts where I'm like, okay, in issue 1 where Bert gets a crowbar upside his head. I mean, not many people can even survive that, much less shake it off and move on. So unless he just wasn't hit that hard. The henchmen to Bob, those mustachioed guys.
Yes, yeah.
At first they sounded pretty intimidating in the first issue or two. And then afterwards it became comic relief.
It's kind of goofy, yeah.
Yeah, so I thought that wasn't real consistent. Bob's motivation, I thought Bob was kind of a neat antagonist, but I don't know exactly what her ultimate goal was in the end run. Maybe I missed it. Maybe I need to reread again. But
kind of just seemed like power, just like
I guess so. Yeah.
Just a wanted to be the king of the castle or the queen of the castle.
She was just a bad person. So,
she'd rather be in charge of a bad time than just be a participant in a good time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I kind of forgot about that. And it's this couple here, Lex and Bert, they've gone from really going after each other, assaulting one another, to being lovebirds at the very end. So
right.
they're a love-hate or rocky relationship type thing. So what reading the story, and I read it all online, with all those double page spreads, that made it difficult for me. That I don't know what it was about the story, but I could not get the pages to turn or go left to right when they were on double page spread mode when I turned it sideways. So it's not really the fault of the story, because I'm sure that it was worthy to have all those. But I think my favorite character is Spartacus. I mean, I could just see Russell Crowe in this part, and him quoting when it was in issue 5 or at the end of 5, I believe, and they're confronting I don't know, some of the other bad guys. I don't know, let's just say that. But Spartacus says in Latin, "Nemo me impune lascit." Now, I had to look that up, and it means no one attacks me with impunity. But that is like a Scottish. That was when the Romans controlled the British Isles. That was came about way back before. It originated or the motto originated way after the gladiators. So either he maybe came up with the phrase himself, or they connected it to him a little bit.
So what you're saying is this time travel story is not historically accurate.
Yeah. Wow, that's true. Yeah, I picked really a minor point to quibble about, didn't I?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I mean, I do. I thought, well, I got to see what that means. Right, now I looked at where's that motto come from, and it was like, oh, it came about, way after the gladiators. So, but it doesn't mean he couldn't have said it.
Yeah.
Overall, though, I mean, in a way, I'd almost read a sequel to this, but only to see if it gets better.
Yeah.
It can't stay this bad, can it?
I'm curious about, because we are talking about how Spats is breaking the rule. He's not playing according to the rules of the thing. But I do wonder if I were to continue, I probably actually will finish reading this at some point in time in the near future. Does he actually break those rules, or does he actually accelerate through to the end of time and start at the beginning again? And is time cyclical? And that's how they'll actually take it, is he will accelerate all the way back to the beginning of time somehow. I don't know. If
that theory exists, if not in real science, at least in comic books or in science fiction.
It does match the shape of the accelerators.
Yeah,
so,
that's true.
There
I
you
did
go.
think that too.
All right, you want
Well,
to grade it?
I don't think that theory is going to work because
No, you don't think so?
surely he wouldn't be the only person at this point who had accelerated it around,
He
so
kills them all. I don't know.
he kills everybody else.
Yes.
Yeah. Maybe there's this point where they can't go past it like a flashpoint.
To coin a phrase.
To coin a phrase, or to borrow a phrase.
To
more
borrow
phrase,
one,
so.
yeah.
All right, I'll go first because I suspect I'll be the low grade here. I'm gonna go 4.0. Very good. It's I don't know. It's pretty borderline. I'm definitely not going to continue it. I don't plan on rereading it. Not going to buy it and put it on my shelf. I thought it was pretty pedestrian, so but I don't have much else to say about it other than 4.0.
Got it.
Very good. Which sounds better than it actually is, right? Because of how the grading works.
I'll go next because I think Shaad might be the highest grade of us, but I don't know if by much. I mean, I'd go higher than 4.0. I'm going to go 5.0. Very good, fine. Just because I think there was enough. The art wasn't that bad. I didn't, like I said, I didn't dislike this book. I just thought, well, but pedestrian's the right word probably.
Yeah.
That Scott said. Yep.
And I like pedestrian, so I mean it makes sense that and yeah, and I don't think that's not a negative at all, but it is definitely like it's surface level for sure. I've rated it 7.5, very fine minus. I do own the whole run, like I said, and there is a little bit of a I don't know if it's old enough to be nostalgia, but there is just like I've got connections to it, so that definitely is a positive for me. And yeah, it did come down though. I will absolutely. Like I said, there were higher hopes for it when I first started. And I was like, this is as good as I remember it. It's
still you put it pretty close, or maybe it's the same grade as you gave the Wonder Woman story.
Yeah,
that's why I said they kind of went one went down and one went up.
So you're telling me
yes.
that you think
yes.
this Wonder Woman League of One
yes.
and Accelerators are at the same quality level?
Yeah.
Wow.
Art and books are subjective. So
that's right.
It's whatever you feel you got out of it.
Oh,
I'll defend you on that, Shaad.
Okay.
Even though I don't agree with the grade exactly, but
yeah.
It is funny. I mean, I guarantee.
Do you still want me on the show? I don't know if my taste is good enough.
Well, I'm just gonna randomly generate my grades from now on. There we go.
I hate to be a snob because I've read a lot of mainstream comics that were just flat out bad. Unfortunately, we haven't had to really review something that we knew was just going to be bad. So there's no sense really reading and talking about stuff that we know already. You know.
Yeah.
And this, I think, it's good enough to talk about and read and move on.
And move on.
Move on. But like I said, I would probably read the second volume just to, I'm kind of curious in a way. So the story wasn't, it didn't throw me, it won't stop me.
It won't stop me.
Well, my 4 range, that's the thing where I'm not actively going to seek it out. But like if I'm trapped in a hotel room and the last guy who was in the room left Accelerators Volume 2 and I had nothing to watch on TV, I forgot my iPad, I probably, not guaranteed, but probably would read the second volume.
Okay.
So, yeah. Now, there are some things I wouldn't read. It's like, I don't care what it is. I'm not going to read that. So, there's a chance.
Yeah, I can see Scott in a dentist office waiting room, and he's got choices. All he's got to read is like a Farmer's Almanac, maybe a 20-year-old National Geographic, and then Accelerators 2.
He's gonna check out that Farmer's Almanac.
Maybe Good Housekeeping or something.
Yeah, the Farmer's Almanac from last year.
Yes.
Oh, well, we ready to CLZ shake?
Let's shake it up.
All right, who wants to go first?
Are you open already?
I'm open already.
Go for it.
Okay, so let's see if I can get that as something falls off my shelf. I can't tell what that is.
Daredevil Volume 2.
Daredevil Volume 2.
Funny.
Hey,
well, that is
that is quite interesting.
Fortuitous,
So
yeah.
yeah, so this would be part, let's see, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Gosh, 7. So this would be no, 6. All right, this would be the 6th appearance of Echo in Daredevil. She made her first appearance in Daredevil issue 9. This is a David Mack written story, pencils by Joe Quesada. And Echo is absolutely one of my favorite characters that has been introduced in the last 20 something years for Marvel. And that's got I don't think this one has a David Mack cover. No, this one's got a Joe Quesada cover on it. But this is that character as she was meant to be, not with the Phoenix Force. And yeah, that's the reason why this one's in, because that first story arc with Echo, I have that first story arc. I've got her first 2 appearances graded, the issue 9, which doesn't have her on the cover, and issue 10, which has Echo on the cover. And I kept the rest of the story because it's an excellent story arc, excellent introduction to the character. Involves the Kingpin. If you've seen the Hawkeye Disney Plus series, they pull from her origin where she was partly raised by the Kingpin whenever her father dies. So it's a pretty good story written by David Mack, who's known more for his art than his writing, but it's a great introduction to the character.
So you mentioned it was her 6th appearance. At what appearance do you stop counting?
Well, I just did the math on it.
Oh, okay. I didn't know
might have been
on the collector's end of it. If it's
no,
at what point does it not bring any value at all?
Well, because her first appearance was in 9, so that was 14. So 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. So it's the final issue in her first story arc.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I think it is. I think it was 6 issues for that story arc. So
okay.
Also her 6th appearance.
You want to go, Shaad?
Yeah, I'll go. I was really hoping that it was going to be Accelerators just for the fun of it. This is Rocko's Modern Life, number 2. This is the Boom reboot that they did back in 2018, and because Marvel did a run in the 90s. So yeah, this is just more Rocko's Modern Life if you're a fan of that show at all. I actually just reviewed all of Rocko's Modern Life on my other podcast. So if you want to check out That Was a Hoot, a Rocko's Modern Life recap podcast, you could go do that. Yeah, and I always enjoy a little Rocko's Modern Life.
How's the theme song go? I know I can't.
Rocko's Modern Life. I don't want to get flagged. That was so spot on that if I sing anymore, we'll get this episode taken.
Right.
It's sang by members of the B-52s.
Oh, okay. Huh. Yep. I don't think I knew that.
Fun fact.
Okay, let's see what this brings up. Oh, I don't know what's up with my camera. You guys can never see what I get.
I got that one.
Did you see it?
Mm-hmm.
Yep. The Dark Tower, The Fall of Gilead. So back this was published in June of 2009, and it was I believe this was a one-shot. There were lots of little miniseries that retold the story of Roland of Gilead. He was the gunslinger in Stephen King's whole Dark Tower novel series, which I'm a big fan of that whole story. And I bought the hardcovers. I collected them. I've read them on audiobook or listened to them on audiobook. And when they came out, when Marvel put them out in comics, I definitely had to get it. They had a lot of the issues had Jay Lee art, but this particular issue was written by Robin Firth, she's known to be the author of the Dark Tower Compendium. So she's just one of those uber fans that turned into a bit of a writer herself. The artist is Richard Eisenove, and it's just it was sort of a side story in the life and times of Roland of Gilead. So I mean, more so than recommending this comic or any of those Marvel Dark Tower iterations or interpretations, if you guys like anything that mixes fantasy and science fiction and horror all together, I definitely recommend the Dark Tower series. There's
Mhm.
7 books, the first 3 especially.
Yeah.
Yep.
I would second that.
Oh, you read it?
I've read the first 3. I'm always trying to get around to reading the 4th one, and so on and so forth.
So one of the most famous first lines in books that I know of is sort of
Yes.
like, as in the Gunslinger.
Yeah.
Do you remember what it is?
Yeah, it's what is it? The man in black fled into the desert and the gunslinger followed. Is that or
Yep.
something along those
Well,
lines?
it's the man in black crosses across the desert, and the gunslinger followed
Yes.
or follows.
Yes.
Getting the tense wrong maybe, but yeah, that stands out for a lot of, I mean, it's not exactly a classic book or anything, but that was one of the best opening lines I've ever heard in a book.
Right.
That's it.
All right, that's
Right.
it. So, Shaad, what do we have coming up on episode 157?
Well, yes, 157,
Okay.
absolutely. What was funny about your choice, Scott, is that we're going to be covering Daredevil Volume 2, issues 1 through 8, right before the first appearance of Echo, as well as Shazam, the Monster Society of Evil.
Written by Jeff Smith of Bone fame.
That's right.
All
Yes,
right.
sir.
Mike, if someone wanted to reach out to you beside podcasts@bergcomics.com, where would they do that at?
Well, they could do it at my email address, m.atchison90@gmail.com, or on Twitter, which is at Mike Atchison5.
All right, Shaad, what about you?
You can find me on Facebook, most likely at Shaad Schubert. That's ShaadSchubert.
And I'm Scott Reed. You can find me at bergcomics.com, BURGcomics.com, with links to all my social media and an eBay store. And we'll be back soon with episode 157.
Did you hear Siri go, hmm? I was getting ready to give out something, yeah. I'm like, what? What's the name of your podcast, Shaad? That's a hoot? That was a hoot. That was a hoot. Yeah. Okay. I was searching for it. I can't find it. Well, it's was a hoot. I don't know if it'll come up under that or if it'll be under IFNZ Productions, maybe. Oh, because there's actually another podcast called That Was a Hoot. What? From Entertainment Containment. Oh yes. My gosh. They took it. They infringed. You were first. I know it. I know. Gosh. So let's see here. Yeah, when was their episode? Was October 21st, 2021. How far back do you go? Further than that, I think. Okay, let's find out here. See if that's the. You just typed in That Was a Hoot and there's another show? Mm-hmm. Are you on podcast? Yeah, I'm on podcast. Huh. That doesn't come up as first on mine. Really? What's the other one about? It's about owls. Bird watching. Sponsored by Anchor FM, part 2 of the Darn You Autocorrect segment. Podcast description, here we go. Let's see if we can get. Trying to find out how many episodes there are. Maybe they're only episodes. Oh, here we go, episodes. Okay. Whoa, we got a lot. They go back to at least April 23rd, 2020. Oh. Nintendo Ray Me is one of their episode titles. Huh. Trying to figure out what the purpose of this podcast is. Right. Let's see here. Go back. They gives his take on everything. Entertainment, music, sports, TV, movie, and more. Oh, okay. So it's just a mutt podcast. Has no focus. No focus. No focus at all. Yeah, let's see. Darn it. See if we can get your episode list here. Podcast description. Yeah, it's in the leisure category. Is it? Yeah. And you go back to, oh wow, you go way back. You go back to 2018. Is that when we started that? May 24th, 2018, episode 1. Okay. There we go. Gosh, we started that long ago. Oh, that's probably when we started the original show, because it's all on the same feed. We kind of did the master feed, and then we split off and did a couple of series and whatnot off of there. Okay. But the Rocco specific probably started last year.
Did you
Got it.
hear Siri go, hmm?
Oh,
When I was
No.
getting ready to give
I
out.
heard something. Yeah.
I'm like, what?
What's the name of your podcast, Shad? That's a hoot.
That was a hoot.
That was
is,
a hoot.
Yeah.
Okay. I was searching for it. I can't find it.
Well,
That
it's
was a hoot.
I don't know if it'll come up under that or if it'll be under IFNZ Productions, maybe.
See. Oh, because there's actually another podcast called That Was a Hoot
What?
from Entertainment Containment.
Oh
Yes.
my gosh.
They infringed. You were first. I know it.
I know. Gosh.
Yeah, so let's see here. Yeah, when does their episode was October 21st, 2021. How far back do you go?
Further than that, I think.
Okay, let's find out here. Let's see if that's the...
You just typed in That Was a Hoot and there's another show?
Mm-hmm.
Are you on podcast?
Where Addict. Yeah, I'm on Podcast Addict.
Huh. That doesn't come up as first on mine.
Really?
What's the other one about?
It's about owls.
Yeah. Bird watching.
Sponsored by Anchor FM, part 2 of the Darn You Autocorrect segment. Podcast description. Here we go. Let's see if we can get... I'm trying to find out how many episodes there are. It may be their only episode. Oh, here we go. Episodes. Oh, okay. Whoa. They got a lot. They go back to at least April 23rd, 2020.
Oh.
Nintendo Ray Me is one of their episode titles.
Huh.
I'm trying to figure out what the purpose of this podcast is.
Right.
Let's see here. Go back. They give his take on everything: entertainment, music, sports, TV, movie, and more.
Oh, okay.
So it's just a mutt podcast. Has no
Gotcha.
focus. No focus.
No focus at all.
Yeah. Let's see.
Darn it.
See if we can get your episode list here. Podcast description.
Yeah, it's under
In the leisure category.
Is it?
Yeah. And you go back to, oh, wow, you go way back. You go back to 2018.
Is that when we started that?
May
we
24th,
had...
2018, episode 1.
Okay. There we go. Gosh, we started that long ago. Oh, that's probably when we started the original show, because it's all on the same feed. We kind of did the like master feed, and then we split off and did a couple of series and whatnot.
Oh, okay. All right.
Off of there.
Okay.
But the Rocco specific probably started last year. Yeah, probably.
There you go.
Maybe the year before. Maybe 21.
I don't promise I'm going to listen to them, but I will subscribe.
Okay, sweet.
So that way you have another subscriber.
That's right. I wouldn't recommend listening to probably anything before the Rocco's Modern Life recap, because it's like current of, like, I don't like listen to old current events podcasts. Like, if you're not listening to the news the month it comes out, it's kind of just pointless at that point.
Oh, okay.
Kind of a thing, you know.
Welcome to the 3rd season of Rocco's Modern Life. There we go. Episode.
I'm not seeing it on. Wait.
You searching for That Was a Hoot?
Yes.
Yes. It's like the only thing that pops up for me.
You might have to go under IFNZ podcast, Mike.
Okay.
Yeah, 213 episodes.
There's a Give a Hoot, Don't Pollute podcast.
Hey, there we go.
You got to search for that exact phrase. That was a hoot.
Yeah, that's exactly what I put in, and all I got was the other one, the one that the episode comes up is talking about. Damn.
Oh, you're on a iPhone though. Aren't
Yeah.
You? Yeah.
That's why. I thought you're not using Podcast
Apple.
Addict, are you?
I think I need to download that. I thought I did.
Mike was all about telling people about our show at the convention. I think
I heard him talking to people. They were just trying to get him to be quiet. Yeah, I do this podcast. We talked about this on our podcast.
I didn't say me. I said we. Come on, you got to promote the show.
I actually intended to get together a little flyer to leave on the table, and I forgot to do it. So
Funny enough, I have one in my car that we didn't take.
Oh,
Oh shoot!
I didn't even think about it.
I still have some from like the last time we printed some up, and I just didn't get them out on the table. So yeah, it's just me being. I'm not a promoter, so. Oh, and I already downloaded the last 5 episodes. Okay, when are we gonna try to do this again?
Let's see. Calendar.
Well, then I need to add those to the list so I don't forget about them.
Do we want to go 2 weeks out?
I can't 2 weeks, so I can't on the 28th.
Okay, gotcha.
Now I can go, some other day, but just not the 28th.
And do we want to plan whatever 158 looks like also?
Will we be ready for previews at 158?
Let's see.
Because
maybe
we'll be close
Yeah.
to previews at 158.
Yeah.
Why don't we just go
do this one and then do previews recorded separate?
So do we want to wait until the 4th, or do we want to do something before then?
That's what you got.
So you're dead in the water on
the 28th.
28th.
Yeah.
Yeah, it'd have to be. I tell you what, work's gonna have me strapped. This next week's my first week at home during the week.
I could record the 21st or the 23rd if either of them would work for you. I can read that stuff in a week. That's not a problem. Though I am in Rachel Rising. I'm up to like volume 4 of Rachel Rising again. I had forgotten most of the story.
Yeah, so next week is the 21st?
Yes. Yeah. Tuesday 21st.
We could try the 21st you said the 21st or the 23rd, right?
Mm-hmm. Either one would work for me.
Either one for me works too.
Probably give me a couple extra days just because.
So do the 23rd.
Yeah.
Okay.
23rd? Okay. So, and then we can try to plan on like the 4th for previews.
Let's see.
Yeah, sure. That'll work. Because the week after that, I'll be gone.
I can't do the 4th specifically, but other days that week are fine.
So the 6th, maybe?
6th I could do, yeah.
So let's see. So 3/23 will be Daredevil, not Daredevil, Guardian Angel. Is that right?
Yes.
And Shazam, Monster. Is it just Monster Society of Evil?
Yep.
I think so, yeah.
Of Evil. Yep.
By Jeff Smith. I forget, he spells his name regular.
Yes.
He's not a G off.
He's a regular Jeff.
He's not a G off. He's a Jeff. Okay.
I'd rather be a G off than a J off.
Then we said the 6th, 3/6.
Yes.
3/6. No, 4/6. 4/6.
Yep.
4/6 previews. Be 158.
8. Yep.
Okay, and then 157 is Daredevil, Guardian Angel. Okay. How soon, Mike, are you wanting to record the Treasury stuff?
Hell, I've got to get a chance to edit or get together the last episode.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm not in a huge hurry.
Okay, all right.
So just sometime in April, maybe.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. So, all right, I will send that. And we'll just assume 6, or if somebody needs to change it, 7, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So the 23rd and the 6th.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
And then do you want to try to get together on Saturday the 20? Well, you said you weren't sure, Scott, until it's closer to that date.
Yeah, because I've been alternating. I've been going to Murphy every other week.
Oh.
Yeah.
So this is my week to go to Murphy to theoretically bring over more comics, though I don't know if he sold anything or not.
Yeah.
And what I'm probably going to do whenever I go over is go through the stuff and pull out 2 long boxes of stuff and just go ahead and set it aside for my giveaways. And just to bring in 2 more boxes is the plan. So it's crazy. It's like last month here in Harrisburg, she wrote me a $176 check, which means that she sold over 200 comics. And then the first month at Muddy Monster, I sold 43.
Yeah.
Was that before or after his rent and surcharge or his commission?
That's why I sold, period. That's not what I made. That's what I sold. Yeah, I lost money that first month.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. So, but right now it's almost like I'm paying for a storage unit is how I view it, just to keep things away. So I'm not really concerned about the money at this point. One of the bigger points is just to give people a different reason to come into the store,
Yeah.
So, yeah. But
well, we could do I don't